Let's go straight to business. The big story everyone's talking about is Nigeria's better ranking with the latest World Bank Ease of Doing Business reports came in overnight. Welcome everyone to the show. I am Bosi Number 5. President Buhari is ramping up on the ease of doing business, which was Executive Order number 1 issued in 2017 has fetched Nigeria a 15 steps higher ranking to 131 globally in a new report released late Wednesday by the World Bank. Nigeria's new ranking adds to the 2017 ranking of 145 by 24 positive points and beats a negative 1 point dip that we've got in 2018 to 146. The new World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking report was released yesterday, when the Nigerian government also released the 2019 Ease of Doing Business Compliance Report, and that report ranked government agencies in terms of ease of doing business. The World Bank says the new report surveys 115 economies globally, where the government launched 294 reforms over the past 1 year. And the report surveys a number of areas which include making business easier for the private sector, how the government of those countries paving way for more jobs, expand commercial activities, and which enables higher incomes for many within their space. The latest edition documents reforms implemented in the last 10 years of business over the last 12 months period ended the 1st of May 2019. The World Bank, however, says that the ranking is not meant to be an investment guide, but a measurement of indicators of ease of doing business. President Buhari's cabinet yesterday approved the payment of the categorized higher minimum wage of 30,000 and backdating that to April this year, says it should be effected no later than the 31st of December. Meantime, President Buhari also ordered the immediate ban of imported textiles for ministries, departments and agencies, including agencies in the security services, and asking all of them to patronize local textile materials. And this is coming straight from Sochi, where the 3-day meeting, Russia-Africa meeting, is being concluded. Nigeria secured Russia's deal to complete the moribund Ajaokuta steel factory, and that we managed by the federal government. So this effectively put paid to speculations whether Nigeria will privatize the Ajaokuta steel facility, one of the largest but not functional steel facility in the world. Other deals secured with the Russian authorities include Ascon, the oil and gas industry, including Lukoil, which is one of the Russian hydrocarbon energy company, and other deals in agriculture, security, and all of that. All of that were part of what President Buhari and his team secured at the just concluded Russia-Africa summit in Sochi. So let's get back home here and talk about Budget 2020 and the whole talk around Nigeria's budgets and Nigeria's debts. This is defending Nigeria's debt portfolio, and that's according to yesterday's presentation to the National Assembly by the Finance Minister. Let's listen to this report.
There were reports at the weekend that the World Bank has approved a $3 billion loan request for the expansion of power transmission and distribution networks in Nigeria. This is one of the loan facilities Nigeria has been chasing to fund critical infrastructure in the country. Nigeria's debt profile currently stands at approximately 25 trillion naira. In the 2020 budget, Nigeria plans to spend 2.4 trillion naira to service both local and foreign debts. But as the federal and even state governments pursue credit facilities to fund infrastructure, there is concern among Nigerians that the country is steadily entering into a debt crisis.
Presentation to the National Assembly in a good time.
But the finance minister gives the country a clean bill of health at the National Assembly budget public hearing.
Nigeria does not have a debt crisis. Our total borrowing today is just under 20% of our GDP, while the multilateral institutions project for an economy our size to borrow up to 50 to 55% of our GDP. What we have is a revenue problem.
But even as the finance minister assures Parliament that the country's debt profile is nothing to be scared of, The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, warns that Nigeria is currently in the grip of judgment debt running into billions of naira, arising from bad cases, contract failures, damages and fines against human rights abuses. He makes this disclosure during a budget defense meeting with the Senate Committee on Judiciary and also asked the committee to appropriate an extra 30 billion naira to his ministry to service the debt annually.
At the home front, judgment debt kept mounting, have all conspired to constitute suffocating legal challenges with attendant mounting financial demands in servicing them.
Lawmakers appear favorably disposed to the minister's request and advise him to send it to the National Assembly in form of a bill, as the money is not included in the 2020 budget.
In certain respects,
the Minister of Justice is also requesting approval from the National Assembly that a commission of 2.5% of a total recovered loot should be given to the Asset Recovery Unit in his office to service bills arising from judgments. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Okay, so let's talk about the ease of doing business ranking. This is one good news on Nigeria's plate. It was in 2017 that Nigeria issued the Executive Order #1, which has to do with ease of doing business and all of that. It's been about 2 years since then, and Nigeria's got a first push of 24 points higher. In 2017 and 2018, we got 1 point negative dip. Then from between 145 and 146, then we're now shooting much higher to 131. So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's raise the curtain on this conversation that's already on social media and everyone's talking about it. Johnson Chukwu is the CEO at Carry Asset Management and is joining us via Skype from Owerri. Johnson, good morning, and it's good to have you on the program on the show at this time to discuss this.
Good morning, Boston.
Good. So if you look at ease of doing business, again, you look at the parameters that the World Bank is using for this. You think these are appropriate parameters?
Yes, and those parameters have been used consistently. And we've also seen that countries that improve on their ease of doing business attract investment from foreign direct investors. So it has been proven over time that these parameters are what investors are looking for. And I think that is what they formed the World Bank to use those parameters to measure each country's performance on the ease of doing business. Investors are looking for the friendliness and ease with which they can invest in countries, with which they can register companies, ease with which they can factories, and all those parameters clearly point us to an environment that is attractive to foreign investors. Not just foreign investors, even local investors.
Okay, so in terms of where we are now, in terms of the ease of doing business, the Executive Order #1 of 2017 looks like it has hit a trajectory here. Are you excited with what you're seeing, what you're hearing from business associates and others in terms of ease of doing business in Nigeria?
Yes, Boston, if you look at what is happening in as a genius person and as somebody who relates with investors socially and internationally, some of those areas of improvement are clearly beginning to impact positively on the view investors have placed in the country. Take, for example, the issue of visitor arrival, which was affected under the Executive Order 1. Clearly, you see that business people can actually get some appointment with their local partners in Nigeria, and then the job is to the next place, and then land in Lagos or Abuja or Port Harcourt and get their visa upon arrival. Instead of the long delays. I remember some years back, 3 years ago, there was a time when it was almost impossible to get the test because they said the visa stickers are not available. So you had to take appointments to come to Nigeria, and they couldn't come because they couldn't get their visas, just solely because the government said that for the embassy said they were just stickers. But right now, you can arrive at the arrival wing of the airport and then get your visa immediately. So that has created a lot of way for people to come here, to come without any equipment or visa. Then other areas that we've seen an improvement of registration of businesses, payment of taxes, number of days or hours it takes to transfer titles to properties have improved, particularly in areas like Lagos, Abuja, and some of these states have adopted graphical information system of title. And those are the measure. The time it takes to pay taxes, the fact that you can actually pay all your taxes at one point, the time it takes to clear your goods at the seaport, especially you have one table to the other, one edge for the other. But now that you have the one infrastructure which you can pay, this is another custom-related. Those have made life easier for business actually making a more amenable environment for make investment in the country.
Okay. In terms of what is left undone, I'm sure if you ask Nigerians, Johnson Chukwu, a number of Nigerians will still wring their hands, as it were, and say, look, we have a lot of areas to fix. The roads are bad. We have insecurity and all of that. So ease of doing business sometimes sounds like whatever gray message to ordinary folks on the street. How do we balance what is being done by the current administration with what is left undone or yet to be done?
Okay, let me give you an analogy. Both in if you have a child and that child is growing, you may not even observe your child is growing. But when visitors come to your house or families come to your house, you mean this child that was born last year or last year. So that's actually what happens when you live in an environment that has a lot of challenges. You wouldn't actually, it wouldn't be clear to you that the improvement is beginning to impact positively. The challenges we have are enormous. The fact that we have improved ease of doing business does not mean we've addressed all our problems. I believe with that improvement, we still have to address those other infrastructural deficits. You mentioned the issue of bad roads. Yes, there are critical issues that we have to address, but they don't take away the fact that we have recorded some improvement. I do not expect that we'll wake up one day and find out our problems have gone. But most important is that fact that there are some improvement. We are clearing some areas, and we must sustain those areas of improvement while we're addressing the areas we still have challenges.
Okay, a final one. As far as the market is concerned, how does this all better ranking flow into the investment market?
Well, you know, the basic thing is any environment that attracts foreign direct investors will also easily attract foreign direct investors. The capital market, the equities market, the secondary market, not even, because the entire market includes the primary and secondary segment. The secondary market, which I believe you are referring to, is a market for that you see foreign portfolio investors coming. I mean, there were reports earlier this week that indicated that there is a lot of an uptick in foreign direct investment inflow into the country in the past couple of weeks. I expect that, I hope that will be sustained. But the key thing is that we have a good piece of news coming from the country, and that says that we have improved by 50 places in our ease of doing business. Those who want interest in the country will look twice and say, look, wow, something is actually happening there. If we also address those other issues, you started your program with talking about the $3 billion dollar loan that the World Bank is granting to Nigeria to improve our transmission grids. That's one of the bottlenecks we have as it relates to making this environment an attractive investment destination. If we address the issue of power supply, address the issue of infrastructure, and also address those soft issues that relate to the ease of doing business, we will certainly begin to see consistent flow of capital into this economy. Remember that one of our areas of great strength is our size of market. We are not exploiting that market because we have a lot of limiting factors. Let's gradually begin to take out those limiting factors, and we see the benefits both in the secondary market and the primary market of the capital of the Nigerian equities and fixed income market.
Yeah, I know you follow the news wherever you go. You're currently in Owerri, but then I'm sure you keep one eye permanently open for earnings. So when big banks such as GT, UBA, and Zenith roll out their numbers, I'm sure you're not missing that by a minute. So what's your take on these numbers? If we start from the from Zenith Bank, 9 months report and those better than expected details that we got yesterday.
Yes, and when I saw the Zenith figure about 150 billion naira in 9 months, I was quite impressed. And interestingly, if you look at the performance of the 4 big banks. But for Access Bank, the 5 big banks are published the accounts. You saw that the profit figures for GP and Zenith were about the same level. Zenith was about 150 billion profit after tax, and Zenith was about 140 billion profit after tax. For me, that actually indicates that the regulatory headwind that the banking industry has been complaining of is not affecting the leaders of the industry. Maybe they're actually benefiting from the regulatory headwind, because if you speak with other smaller banks, the mid-sized banks, they are complaining so much about the pressure that the central bank regulations is bringing to bear on their earnings. But that has not reflected in the earnings of GT and Zenith, where we saw increase in earnings. Even that of UBA and First Bank were also increases in earnings. Despite the huge loan provision that First Bank has to make about 22 billion, they still reported about 50 billion profits in the third quarter of this year. So the 4 big banks have reported published their accounts are actually showing that they are able to navigate their performance beyond the regulatory headwind we are facing, the industry is facing.
All right, Johnson Chukwu, thank you so much, the CEO at Carrier Asset Management. We appreciate your time this morning, raising the curtain for us on the headline story, which is all about the new World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. Nigeria getting a better ranking than in 2018. We upstaged our 1-point dip last year to climb 13 points higher, and that's putting Nigeria now 15 points higher, beg your pardon, and now ranking 131 globally among about 155 countries surveyed, Economist surveyed by the World Bank. That's the big story this morning. The conversation around Nigeria's ranking continues on the show tomorrow. Of course, we're drilling down a lot more into the details, as always, into that, and again, getting everyone to get a better sense of how we arrived and all those parameters and what it really means for what the administration is currently doing, and giving a sense of the confidence for the business community in Nigeria and those who are foreign investors.